The White House is already letting them know early, saying that they are getting hit with a 35% tariff, hiked up from 25%.
The United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend.
We took in hundreds of billions of dollars worth of tariffs, but you people didn't cover it very well.
Let me ask you about Canada, which is our second largest trading partner. The president increased tariffs to 35%.
4 hours. That's all it took for shockwaves to spread. Ottawa was warned directly. A 35% tariff on Canadian goods was imminent. Washington's message was blunt. America claimed it was taking in trillions. Yet even U.S. insiders admitted volatility at the top. 1 minute, he's steady. The next, the cheese slips off the cracker. How do you deal with that? Canada's reply was equally stark. We must phase U.S. products out of our market so Canadian goods can compete and win. The handshake between allies was shattered. A trade war had begun. Under Donald Trump's renewed leadership, tariffs became the weapon of choice. It started with steel. Rates doubled from 25% to 50%. For Washington, this was a patriotic crusade to revive U.S. industry. For Canada, it was a betrayal, one that set off global consequences. By February 2025, the fair and reciprocal plan was official. Steel and aluminum imports faced 50% tariffs, an attempt to force production back onto U.S. soil, even if it fractured alliances. The logic was rooted in Trump's belief that trade deficits signaled unfair deals. Tariffs, he argued, were leverage, tools to force partners into concessions that favored the United States. By June, tariffs on Canadian aluminum, a critical U.S. supply, were doubled. By August, another 35% tariff hit a wide range of Canadian goods. Ottawa retaliated immediately. Trump's justification was blunt. They've charged our farmers over 200%. They've treated America badly for years. The message was clear. Washington was willing to wage economic war, starting with its closest ally. It began on March 12, 2025. Executive orders reinstated suspended tariffs, 25% on Canadian steel and aluminum. Then came June 4th. Tariffs doubled to 50% and expanded to nearly every country, except the United Kingdom. By August, the scope widened again. U.S. Customs and Border Protection confirmed the list now stretched far beyond raw metals. Trucks, trailers, auto parts, even household appliances, all faced 50% duties. This was a dramatic escalation. What once shielded only raw steel and aluminum now covered anything made from them. The reasoning was blunt. Protect domestic industries at any cost. Raise U.S. steel and aluminum prices. Safeguard 140,000 American jobs. But the ripple effects were immediate. Automakers and construction firms dependent on those same metals saw costs surge. Was America truly winning? To some, it was industrial revival. To others, a Pyrrhic victory, gains at home offset by rising prices and economic strain. Canada refused to back down. The country that had long been America's most reliable supplier decided to fight hard. In March 2025, Ottawa unveiled a $29.8 billion countermeasure package, designed as both strategy and retaliation. First, a 25% tariff on U.S. steel exports, hitting directly at Trump's signature industry. Then, another 25% on U.S. aluminum, erasing any competitive edge American producers had gained. But Ottawa went further. $14.2 billion worth of U.S. goods, from machinery to consumer products, were targeted, ensuring the impact cut deep into American industries and communities. The results were immediate. By mid-2025, both economies had absorbed nearly $50 billion in added tariff costs. U.S. GDP growth projections fell by 0.5 percentage point for both 2025 and 2026. This was no longer a trade dispute. It was an economic hemorrhage. In Canada, $24 billion worth of exports were directly hit. Infrastructure projects and housing faced soaring material costs. Then came a symbolic strike. Liquor boards in Ontario and British Columbia pulled American bourbon and wine from their shelves. a direct challenge to U.S. cultural exports. The damage was severe. Within 6 months, U.S. spirit exports to Canada collapsed 62%. Wine exports fell 67%. By May and June 2025, U.S. wine exports had plunged 97%, bourbon and spirits 66%. For Kentucky, home of America's $9 billion bourbon industry and 213,000 jobs, the blow was catastrophic. Governor Andy Beshear condemned the tariffs, warning livelihoods were being sacrificed in a trade war Kentuckians had no part in. Canada wasn't just a buyer, it was a gateway to global markets, accounting for 41% of U.S. wine exports in 2024. Ottawa's move signaled to Europe and Asia that U.S. goods could be replaced overnight. By late 2025, political backlash in Washington was fierce. Senators from both parties and industry groups blasted the administration. Kentucky lawmakers warned of $43 million in annual export losses. Small distilleries faced collapse. Oversupply deepened the crisis as younger generations shifted away from bourbon. The administration was bleeding its own political base, turning symbolic victories into real economic pain. The lesson was clear. Allies can weaponize everyday goods. Canada proved it. Markets were lost, industries destabilized, and America's reliability as a partner was questioned worldwide. By the end of 2025, one truth stood out. In global trade, there are no safe zones. If steel and bourbon can be weaponized, what's next? Food? Medicine? Digital infrastructure? The precedent has been set, and the consequences will shape the future of every nation.